Jean-Claude's distinguished career spans over 30 years. He most recently served as president, CEO, and ultimately chairman of the World Travel and Tourism Council. He is currently chairman and CEO of Crew, a highly respected consultancy organization. Last night at the wonderful party hosted by the Oberei, I asked him, what is your favorite spa treatment? And I think it was a tie between shiatsu and aromatherapy. He said, I'm French. Aroma, it's the aroma, right? I also found out that he drives a Morgan, an unusual sports car. And if you want to hear a really interesting story, ask him about the day that he bought it. It's a surprising story. Peter Greenberg will also join us, and he needs no introduction. You've seen his face as he traipses around the world as a travel editor for CBS News, for CBS This Morning, for CBS Evening News, and CBS Sunday Morning, too. He's a major contributor to a variety of significant publications, including Michelin Travel, Men's Health Magazine, Parade, ForbesTraveler.com, and MSN.com. Peter is widely recognized as the consummate insider for reporting travel business as news. I'm so excited that he's going to be putting into perspective how to get spa and wellness on the map, competing and winning the hearts and dollars of tourists around the world. Peter? Jean-Claude?
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Wellness means also being awake. Okay, good. You know, when we talk about the words defining moment, I want to share one with you that happened as recently as last week, but it's a continuing problem of a defining moment of the word travel. Most people make the mistake of thinking travel just means holiday, and it's not. It's news. If the federal government shuts down, that's a travel news story. If a volcano erupts in Iceland, that's a travel news story. If there's a royal wedding in England, a travel news story. And as some of you may have watched with me last week on television in Nairobi, if there's a shooting and a massacre in a mall in Kenya, that also becomes a travel news story. And the same can be said about wellness tourism or medical tourism, as Susie was pointing out earlier. And we have to come up with a definition of terms in order to put that in perspective and then get the message out. Jean-Claude knows all about getting the message out. You know, we know about his background at Air France, so he knows the need about healing. But it's in the airline business. It's the airline business. But more important than that, it was his work at the World Travel and Tourism Council, and the reasons why the World Travel and Tourism Council even became in existence was to get the message out. Not just to the public, not just to business, but to governments, to get them to understand the true power, the true impact, the connecting dots, if you will, of travel and tourism. And when you think about it, if we're going to come up with a defining moment here, or a new definition of terms, there are three areas that I know for a fact, I can't say many things for a fact, but I can say this for a fact, that transcend all the demographics. No matter what the ethnicity, the race, the income level, the education level, it doesn't matter. What transcends those demographics are three things: medical, finance, and travel. Now think about that. That's wellness tourism. It's medical tourism. And that's one of the reasons, I think, why it's one of the fastest growing segments in the entire travel industry. We've had a change, of course, because we've gone from the definition of medical tourism, which is underinsured or uninsured folks going for treatments they have to have, to wellness tourism, which is people making a conscious decision of things they want to have. And helping to put that in perspective, Jean-Claude, tell everybody, if you can, some of the background of the World Travel and Tourism Council, because you had a challenge. You really had a mandate from your own members to get the word out at a time when people, especially governments, were not taking this industry seriously.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you give me the word a little bit. You know, the problem with Peter is that he talks so much that... Anyway, we are all pals, you know. He has been grilling me for years on his radio and TV. Well, listen, it was very interesting to listen to Susie before, because WTTC, you know, the paths are a little bit parallel. WTTC was created in 1980 when a couple of CEOs in Paris, it's not because I'm French, but it happened like that. Sometimes things happen in Paris, you know. They had a good dinner, most probably a good bottles of wine, all on an expense account, by the way. And they said, damn, we must be one of the biggest industry in the world, and nobody realizes that. And it's our fault, actually. We have to get out with something which makes sense, which is something we can communicate with. And Jim Robinson, the chairman of Amex at that time, said, okay, guys, American, you know. He said, we need figures. So we decided to develop a research, not something sophisticated, something we can communicate to people, and especially to governments. The second thing we decided was that we need to have a group of dedicated people. And what Susie said this morning, you are that group of dedicated people, to bring that thing to another level. And the last was to hire a CEO. That was my fate, actually. You know. And what I did all over those quite a few years is to take that message. Imagine, I never went to see Minister of Tourism, by the way, because if there is any, it's not a major minister, not even a cabinet minister. I was discussing with Minister of Economy, prime ministers or presidents. And it was very simple. Do you know, Excellency, how much of your GDP is travel and tourism? Usually it went like that. And 10%, eye-opener. Do you know how many people, and when you talk about people, in the mind of a politician, equal election? Do you know how many people are working for travel and tourism? 11% of your working population. And that message, we hammered it in everywhere. And now, Peter, you were talking about events. It's horrible to say, it's a huge paradox. Governments didn't know travel and tourism. They didn't want to hear about travel and tourism. And all of a sudden, something horrible happened. Actually, I was on a plane from Miami to New York on September 11. I had a press conference planned at the American Express headquarters at 11 a.m. I never reached New York, as you can imagine. It was terrible. Travel and tourism decreased by 27%. And all of a sudden, all those messages we gave across became true in the eye of the politician. So you have to also seize opportunities. What we have done over the years is that our figures become recognized. And that's something I think you have to work on. Get recognitions to your figures. And also what we have achieved is that now governments understand that travel and tourism is important. And listening to what Thierry said, and listening to what a lot of people say, even if you open a newspaper this morning when I read the Times of India, jobless is becoming one of the major problems in the world. And travel and tourism is one of the biggest employers. So that's what we did. And we started summits. And the first summit was after September 11.
And interestingly enough, and I think some of you are embracing this notion of becoming too dependent on focus groups. I'm one of those people who believe that focus groups lie. They've never told the truth since 1947. Because they're always asked questions to which you already want the answer that you're already engineering them to give you. And let me give you this example, since Jean-Claude brought it up after September 11th. And that is, and by the way, it happened again after 2008 and the economic debacle in the United States. Right after September 11th, people were asked this question, focus groups, right? And you know what the answer is going to be the minute you hear the question. Will you be traveling this year? And the answer, of course, 99% said no. They forgot to ask the second question, which is why you're all here today. Do you want to? And of course, everybody wanted to, but they didn't think they could. Now, what proved everybody wrong was, of course, travel is one of the most resilient industries in the world. It bounced back faster than anybody could imagine, faster than other countries' economies entirely. Same thing happened after 2008. And yet, what was the reason why it bounced back? A certain desperation. The demographics changed. I remember in 2008, I was in Paris, working on a story then for NBC, at a time when the euro was very high, the economy was in the dumper, and every single hotel in Paris, it was July, every single hotel in Paris was completely oversold by Americans who were all in the lobby bitching about how expensive it was. But here's the interesting fact. I asked them, well, certainly you knew what the exchange rate was before you came here. Yes. But you're still here. Yes. Why? Interesting that without exception, they all said one way or the other, we felt if we didn't come now, we'd never come. It was a sort of Last Supper mentality. And that sort of explains some of the transition, let's say, between medical tourism before and wellness tourism now. They felt they had to, now they want to. But now your challenge right now, and your challenge as well, as Jean-Claude said, is how do you get the numbers out? And how do you put them in perspective?
Yes. Coming back to that, what is important also, and we never talk about it, we always talk about international arrivals, 1 billion. In 2027, 2 billion. But do we know? We know, but the growth potential is in domestic travel.
Regional travel. And regional travel.
What I call domestic travel, within the country. Catherine yesterday said it's 2.4 billion domestic travelers in China. Xiaoqi Wei, the head of the National China Tourism Administration, told me 3 billion, but who cares, 600 million. The major tourist market in the US is domestic. Only 50% of your country citizens have a passport.
Actually, it's less than that.
Well, you know, I'm always
And
optimistic.
what's even worse is how many members of the United States Congress have a passport.
Well,
Think I'm kidding?
sometimes it's better that they don't travel, actually. So in other words, they travel free, you know, we pay for that travel, you know. That's in other words, what I also urge now our members and what we really work on is to get the awareness of domestic travel. Now, if you pile that up, domestic, international, repeat weekenders, God knows what, you have billions and billions of travelers. And the challenge we have now is how to get them to see our products. Last is the adventure travel, to get something out of the travel. And Amitabh Khan this morning, my friend, said something very important. The traveler wants to take something back home. And what you can provide in wellness is to help them to get something back home. And I think when Susie asked me to speak here, I said, well, I bring my good friend Peter Greenberg with me. But also, I looked at what you are doing, actually. And I have been seeing over the years that push towards well-being, wellness. A lot of people are now looking. Thierry was mentioning, can you imagine what he said? Everything is so uncertain, unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know? Sometimes I wonder how our head of states make decisions. You know? Yeah, most probably you're right, like that, you know. But we do the same thing. And going to your office, when I was the #2 at Air France and we had to make decisions, the best decisions we made in our executive committee, where I was the chairman, was sometimes gut-feeling decisions. And helping people to make gut-feeling decisions is making them serene. You have to be serene, and what you bring to people is just peace of mind and an ability to fight against all the aggressions you have every day. So that's the philosophic part of it.
It's true, and what Thera was talking about was increasing inequality in classes, but also increased velocity, and living in the global village where we're really working on a 24-hour clock. I was actually quite impressed about some of the changing paradigms of how you approach wellness tourism or the spa business. For example, when I checked into this hotel last night, they were giving me a tour of the hotel. They gave me a tour of the room. This is not an unusual situation when you check into a hotel. And then the woman who was talking to me said, oh, by the way, our spa is open 24 hours a day. I was in shock, because that's not the American paradigm. The American paradigm is you get a spa appointment at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the spa closes at 7, and you fall asleep at dinner. Yes? Thank you. But when you think about, look at the airline schedules just in India or in the Gulf states or especially in Asia. Planes depart at 2 in the morning. So we don't live a 9-to-5 life. And so when you look at how things are changing, that's also part of getting the message out that you don't have to have the rigid schedules that you had before. In fact, it is growth through uncertainty because there are no schedules when you think about it. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Try to be more enthusiastic.
Peter, it depends on the geographical situation, you know.
No, but
and we are in an area where you have to leave in the middle of the night to reach the major destinations. But where you're right, and now I'm becoming more enthusiastic, where you're right is that the growth of air traffic, can you imagine in China, 20% per year? The growth in air traffic means that in order to get all those airplanes flying, you have to use 24 hours a day, and here we go.
Right, now the other thing is this, he's talking about the airports in China. How many new airports have opened in the United States in 20 years? Zero.
Zero.
How many airports have opened in the last 2 years in China? I think 30.
35,
35.
actually.
And they're not airports, they're
They just built a new one yesterday.
Another one. When you land at these airports, a very interesting thing happens. Of course, it has that new airport smell. And you show up at a gate or a jetway, and you get off the plane, and you're the only plane on the ground. You're the only one there. And you walk around and think, wait, did they evacuate the place and not tell us? No. The Chinese are building ahead of the infrastructure needs. And yet, what are they building? They're not building airports, they're building an aerotropolis. So in the infancy days of the spa and wellness business, when somebody opened up a 10-minute massage place at an airport, that's changing now. And what's happening now is the airport becomes a place you go to for that procedure while you're waiting for a plane that may never leave. But the point is, think about this. Somebody in the wellness industry actually invited me to the Charlotte airport one day. Why? To show me the rocking chairs at the airport. Now, what message does that send you? That message says to you, you're going to be here a while. So, right? Everybody, you know, doom, dee, 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 doom, dee. Okay. So, once that happens, that is a reason to start a business and to develop a business and to enhance a business that meets a need. And that's really one of the things that I've noticed. And this, by the way, is a fault of the media, of which I'm a part. Most of the people who make the decisions that drive what I do, no matter what network it is or what magazine it is, very East Coast centric. And their idea of travel is whether or not they're going to go to the Hamptons that weekend. People in this room are laughing because you know better. We have to get that message out that it is a 24/7 world. and that not just services, but institutions and philosophies are available to them that can actually change their lives, and we do that transition from wanting something, and needing something to wanting something.
Peter, one other, I think time is running out almost, but one other.
Oh, that's very cute. Hold that up.
Well, what's that?
Turn around and show everybody that thing.
2 minutes? 2 minutes
Thank
to
you.
go?
Okay, fine.
One other thing is diversification. Speaking about airports becoming shopping centers. Airports can become well-being centers. And I think that's very important that we consider that in anything we develop is that we have to diversify the products. Hotels have been diversifying products by building 3-star restaurants. There are not so many 3-star restaurants anymore in hotels. They are spas. And coming back to all what you said, is that we are more in a world where you travel and you spend time, sometimes more outside of your house than inside. And the world has to become something you feel comfortable in.
The word authenticity, if you look at the sort of the evolution of spas at hotels, as Jean-Claude just talked about that, every hotel felt at one point they had to have a health club. So what did they do? They knocked out 2 walls between a room, threw in a Jane Fonda workout tape, and hoped for the best. Same thing with children's programs. Now it's different. And what's different about it now is that people are coming with greater expectations. And they want to have an authentic experience, but they also want to know about the process. If you ask kids where food comes from today, they tell you at the store. We have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. How many spas used to tell me, we get our mud from Madagascar, and that's what does the stone treatments. But they never really told me how they got the mud and how long it took and why they got the mud and what made that mud special. And people are really fascinated with that story because if you can appreciate the process, then you value the product. And part of getting that message out, just like Jean-Claude was talking about, the real hard numbers that got the attention of all those ministers because they could connect the dots, is also to let them know about the process of how the spa came to being and why it's doing what it's doing.
Yeah, well, I think to conclude, right?
Stop that.
Is that you have a fantastic opportunity in a world which is looking for jobs, with a world which is looking for well-being. You have a fantastic opportunity to get yourself in the front of the news. And that's what you are planning to, I understand.
You know what? We've been cut off. But I'll see you later with a panel later this afternoon, which Jean-Claude will be a part of as well. Thank you very much.